First Chronicles 23, 1 and 2 say, Now when David reached an old age, he made his son Solomon king over Israel, and he gathered together all the leaders of Israel with the priests and the Levites. Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 90-day reading plan, today's reading is 1 Chronicles 23, verses 1 through 23, and I encourage you to read that passage. One of the final acts that David did was to organize the Levites so that they knew exactly the role that they should play in the temple. He didn't leave their role to chance. Instead, he was very specific about what he told them to do. In addition, he laid out a form of worship that followed for centuries afterwards. Now, if you think about it, many of the aspects of that planning that he did in the form of worship actually comes down to us in various denominations of Christianity. There are some denominations that are organized in their worship, and they maintain a liturgy that allows them to be very structured in how they worship. Other denominations are very free in their worship, but they still have the same elements of music and worship. This all comes from David's planning. We should be very aware of how we worship, how we come before God in an organized manner. The writer of Hebrews was very specific when he wrote that we should not forsake the gathering together of one another, Hebrews 10:25. Paul was very specific in his letter to 1 Corinthians when he outlined exactly how tongues and worship should take place in the church. Christ was very specific when he instituted the Lord's Supper. These are not things that should be taken lightly. Now, the early church taught that when we gathered to worship God, and that those who had gone to heaven before us were also worshiping with him, and therefore they taught that there should be a consistency in how each person worships. In Eastern Orthodoxy, you can go anywhere in the world on any given Sunday, and without knowing the language of the worship service in that country, you'll know exactly where they are in that worship service and how you should be participating. This has been true since the earliest meetings of Christianity. We need to understand that worship is just not an individual choice. Worship within the community of Christ, and therefore it should be treated with reverence. We should not be seeking to be entertained. We should not be seeking our own personal uplifting. The gathering of the church is a gathering of the community of Christ, and it should be treated as such.